What's going on, guys? Teacher Eli here. E aí, ensino médio, professor Eliseu aqui. E hoje eu vou falar um pouquinho em português aqui, porque hoje eu vim com uma ideia um pouquinho diferente de aula, tá? Vou pedir que vocês guardem os livros de vocês, nós estamos fechando o nosso primeiro trimestre e a forma como eu gostaria de avaliar o ensino médio para fecharmos o primeiro semestre, nossa última avaliação vai ser baseada então em um texto que eu mesmo escrevi sobre a pandemia que nós estamos vivendo. E esse texto aqui, ele é baseado, então, text by Eli Bortoli, inspired by the analogies of the Brazilian professor Leandro Carnal. Eu inspirei, então, esse texto então, nas analogias do professor Leandro Carnal. E no final desse texto aqui, temos 3 perguntas que vocês devem responder, então, em inglês. E vocês serão avaliados, sua avaliação final será desse primeiro trimestre, será a partir, então, dessas perguntinhas, tá ok? E o texto é basicamente What will happen to the world after the pandemic? O que vai acontecer com o mundo depois da pandemia? Então, minhas ideias baseadas nas analogias do professor Leandro Carnal, vocês podem usar elas como referência para responder as perguntas, passar suas próprias ideias ou buscar suas próprias fontes. Convido a todos, então, a acompanhar a leitura comigo. Pandemics, wars, natural disasters, there are problems which help to speed up things in planet Earth, mainly related to the humankind. Let's use education as an example. Months ago, there were debates about the course of education. Would it be by distance or in local, the benefits, uppers, the downers of each case. This pandemic that we're living accelerated the process of distance education, forcing families and professionals to work differently. A bunch of people have already had online meetings before the pandemic, of course, but now those are the only ones that we have. A bunch of people who have wondered how good would it be to have more time to spend with their families. Now they are forced to stay all the time with their families. To stay all their time with their families. Or to stay all the time with their families. Right? This is a shock for a bunch of us. So we are living a brief moment in time, a moment which is being sped up by a pandemic, and that means that every single evolution or change or advancement that has been debated or that has been implemented in our lives / society is gonna get to us sooner. And obviously way more forced. And we cannot face these changes, we cannot challenge these changes because they will be here to stay. As it happened before in other moments of change, when you are forced into darkness, as soon as you get to the light, you ought to appreciate it differently. You ought to appreciate light differently. Let's use the French Revolution as an example. French people who didn't die for the revolution enjoyed life more extremely after it. Let's use fashion to encore my point of view. It became really extravagant after the revolution. People thought, as I didn't lose my as I didn't lose my head, as I didn't get killed. I'm just correcting here. I didn't lose my head, as I didn't get killed. Let's use everything I was left with around my neck. Let's be really extravagant. Let's use what I have. Let's live the way I can. I didn't die for this revolution, so let's enjoy life differently. This was a kind of boom, kind of explosion of light and an explosion of joy. One of the tendencies after this moment of isolation and reclusion is being more open-minded and joyful with others when we can. Let's say that we might live a boom of human hit. Joy and socialization after this pandemic and its consequences. Why? Why do I think that is gonna happen? You are away from your friends, you are away from people you don't have human contact that much, and you are forced into the same situation day after day. So when we finally break free from the chains of the isolation due to the pandemic, we tend to be more effusive and we tend to be more enthusiastic when it comes to being with other people. Talking about education, where we started from, I said that the end of the regular classes was a debate before everything that we're living right now. And this process has been accelerated, which means which process? The process of having distance classes, right? Okay, and then, well, our teachers, including myself, we weren't trained in college to be YouTubers. We learned different things, but we didn't learn how to be YouTubers. So that's where we see one of the laws of Darwin, the law of adaptation. For students, they may face different challenges and they will have to manage their time and be self-conscious of their tasks. They also face the problem, which is lack of human contact or the benefits of socialization. That will cause the boom of the explosion of sociability, which I mentioned earlier there. Talking about booms and explosions, when it comes to technology, what is expected from workers, being the simplest of them or the most qualified, is at least, I repeat, at least a good knowledge of English and computer softwares. For the modern world, basically, you need to fit yourself into the tendencies. I mean, if the tendency is virtual classes, you need to learn how to use the softwares necessary to do that. If the future is a globalization, stigma where English is the main language, well, your public is going to be way bigger if you learn how to communicate in this main language. If you publish a book in Portuguese, you're gonna reach this number of people. But if you publish a book in Portuguese, you're gonna reach this amount of people. But if you publish the same book in English, you're gonna reach this amount of people. Together with Portuguese, you're gonna reach this amount of people. Way more. So if you reach 25 with Portuguese and 75 with English, with both of them, you're gonna reach 100 people. So we live in a country, which is Brazil, which has been estimated that at least about 50% of the population is a functional illiterate, which means people who are incapable of understanding a simple instruction or a simple text or reading and understanding an explanation or an instruction. Doesn't mean that they are illiterate because they can write, they can read, but they are incapable of function towards the knowledge they get from what they read or listen or write. And this population, which will be their part in the world where the logarithm will answer for everything autonomous. So we have a machine, a computer and softwares which answer autonomously about questions that these people are incapable of dealing with. Which kind of role will this person portray in a world where a computer can answer easier for every single question this person would be asked? The answer for it is simple. If we consider exclusion of such a big part of the population, will be put in risk our own capitalistic system. Which means that the survival of the capitalism will rely on the qualification of these people. We cannot simply exclude these people from our system and hope everything will be the normal or back to normal, because it won't, and history tells us this. What can we do to the people with no perspective of getting jobs? After the pandemic, what to do with the giant mass of unemployed people, which in Brazil is over 10 million, I think nearly 15 million unemployed people. If you think that you can isolate yourself in a closed condom downtown, you may be wrong. And when I said that the story can explain this, let's remember that one day Versailles was invaded by the poor people from Paris. A day in October 1789. Centuries ago. The story, better saying, the history has been teaching us that the exclusion of the poor will cause consequences. A Brazilian philosopher, which I don't remember the name right now, says and pictures a hypothetical world where people never sleep. Some of them don't sleep because they don't have what to eat, and some of them, they don't sleep because they are afraid of those who don't have what to eat. Do you imagine this scenario? Let me write here this phrase to finish my explanation. So, 50% of the people don't sleep because they don't have what to eat, and the other 50% don't sleep because they are afraid of those who don't have what to eat. I remember this is not my phrase, it's from a Brazilian philosopher, which I don't remember the name, but I can tell you guys later. So based upon my ideology or the text I wrote towards Leandro Carnal's analogies, I have 3 questions here. Question number 1, you're going to write a paragraph explaining your ideas about what will happen to the world after pandemic, which is going to be in English. The question number 2, what changes do you expect for the future of the educational system? And finally, how to balance the social system with a big part of the population being functional illiterate. That's it for this, guys. Eu lembro vocês então que essa é a avaliação final do trimestre. Caprichem super. Eu fico por aqui, valeu, falou, fui.